Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with wonderfully fun people like Sam here, and on topics that help our listeners, that's you, find the resources, tools, and support that they need to be their best inspired selves. Hi, Sam.
Hello, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Like, everyone can't see this unless they watch the video, but Sam has the best podcasting equipment. I feel like she should be interviewing me. So she got a new mic. It's pretty spiffy.
Oh, I love it. I had just mentioned to you, I can definitely tell a difference from my videos before to now, and I'm not going back.
I'm never going back. Nice. I love it. So Sam, could you just tell the audience just a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a life and mindset coach for small town entrepreneurs. A little bit about kind of my own personal standing is I'm married, got two kids, ages 6 and 2.5. I still am actually working in a full-time job as I'm building my coaching business. So I think I know whenever I bring that up, people are like, oh yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now too. So I thought I'd just mention that. But yeah, I do coaching I picked the niche of small town entrepreneurs because I am one myself. I actually made the pivot into coaching in about like July, August last year, so 2019. Prior to that, I was doing brand design, so like identity work, logos, things like that, and brand strategy work. And I hit this point where I was just like, I don't know if this is actually fulfilling to me. And I was working with a coach, and she really helped me dig into what maybe I could be doing. And in conversation with her, we really figured out that I love mindset work because I've been doing it for a long time. And I was already maybe doing some of this and didn't really realize I was. And then also the small town portion of it, I think there are challenges that are very specific to people who either live in or grew up in a small town that, especially if you're in an online business, it's just different. And we may get into a little bit of it later, but yeah, the specific challenges really drew me into wanting to help people who maybe were in my position when I was even trying to build my branding business. So
I mean, I have theories. I grew up a lot of places, some small towns, some big towns.
yeah.
But what are some of the things that are unique to an entrepreneur who's in a small town trying to, make it work?
Yeah, so some of the top things I would say, and these apply to me as well,
Mhm.
um, are the networking. So I live in a town of 1,500 people, and the
You're not just
nearest,
like chilling out and meeting people all the
yeah.
time, right?
So I mean, we have a chamber of commerce kind of thing, but it's like all older men who work at the bank, and it's just not my tribe of people. I'll basically say, put it as that. And then it's an hour's drive for me to get to a networking event to actually meet face to face with people, which I have done. But a lot of the time it's on a Tuesday morning. And like I said, I'm still in a full-time job, so that doesn't really work for me. Um, so yeah, networking is one of the main ones. I would also say just like your perspective on what is possible. I talk to people in my small town and tell them what I do, and they're like, you can make money doing that? Like, what is that?
Tell me
I mean,
more.
yeah. And I think you would get that too, maybe in bigger places. People haven't heard of like virtual assistants or, things like that. But I just feel like it's more so in a small town. People are very, I don't want to say narrow-minded, but they just don't understand the potential that there is with online businesses.
Yeah, I think I would agree there. And it's not even, it's small town is a niche that would be like that. But the other one is people who grew up, like I grew up very poor. Um, We lived in a car for like a year. We lived in a trailer a lot of the time. And I remember it's such a weird visual, vivid memory, but I was like in second grade and a friend of mine invited me to her house, and it was like a house. Like they had a finished basement and like 2 stories on the house and a detached garage, like 2 cars. I thought her dad had to be a billionaire. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, what do your parents do?" And she's like, "Oh, my mom's a teacher and my dad works construction." And I was like, "Oh my goodness, really? Like you guys are
Yeah.
billionaires." And she's looking at me like I'm completely bananas. But I just didn't know. Like I
Mm-hmm.
thought anyone who didn't live in a box, a heated box, was a billionaire, and we could never do that, right? We could never have those things. And I could see there being like it's similar. For me, it was a small town and poor living in a trailer park in the middle of the desert, right? Similar. There wasn't really anyone to talk to tell you different either,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
because if they're doing it, they weren't there with us, doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can see that being perspective, not
Yeah.
more almost, gotta be careful with the word, but like
Mm-hmm.
ignorant, but not like in a, yeah, like you just
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah,
what you don't know.
exactly. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, for sure.
Um,
So you have networking, and that's funny, but yeah, I could totally see that the horny toad that was living next door to me wasn't really down with my networking plan. And perspective of not really having it. Any other like bright shiny objects that are
yeah, the one other one that really sticks out, and this is with just about everyone I talk to that's also, in a similar situation of the small town, is, there's the fear of visibility. But when you're in a small town, everybody knows you, and it's not the same as like, okay, so I live in a big place and I'm going to go live. I'm not going to go to the grocery store and see, 10 of the people who just saw my live I did, and they're going to be asking me about it and judging me and all of that. So I put things out, just my own personal experience. I've been becoming a lot more visible online, and I hear about it like daily from people in the community, which is cool. But at the same time, there's also those people who are like, what's she doing? Kind of,
when is she gonna get a better job? Is that her
yeah,
job? What is she?
yeah.
I had the opposite experience. So I actually I live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So in terms of Wisconsin, it's a big city. In terms of like the rest of the world, it's not that big. But I remember the first time someone mentioned my videos to me, I was actually like completely, and I'm not shy at all, and I don't mind being visible. I was shocked. I was like, what? Like, what? Oh, I was watching your video you did the other day, and I was like, what? You what? It was one of the moms at my kid's school, and I was completely shell shocked by it. First of all, I was like, oh, that's right. Like I'm on the internet. Of course they would be able to. But then I didn't even realize that people I knew locally were following what I was doing. And
Right.
that was weird for me because I don't get really nervous, and I don't mind. I don't have stage fright or any of those. I was like, I don't know if I like that. That's so weird.
Yeah.
It's like the opposite, but it was very weird for me.
Yeah. So I think that is definitely one of the other big ones, is really being afraid to actually put your real self out there for fear of being kind of judged, I guess, on a whole nother level.
Yeah, for sure. So I have to imagine, which is, I mean, right now, based on your marketing, looks like the biggest reason you exist. But well, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of reasons you exist, but your company. I love the idea that I'm going to say it wrong, but like the premise I get is like, don't let those big city people try to charge you pay you small price when you're doing, just as good a work as everyone else. It's kind of the gist, I think. You said it's super classy, but do you run into that a lot where like, theoretically some big city gals like, oh, well, you live in the with the cows, well, I should only have to pay you like $100, right? Like kind of that.
Yeah, I think so. If you go to my website, right on the top, it says something along the lines of stop charging small town prices for big city results or clients or something like that. I can't remember
Yeah, I
exactly
wrote
what
it
it
down
says.
wrong and I realized I was like, small town prices, big city prices. No, that's not right.
But what I was getting at was that it's more of like a mindset of the small town person. So when you only know what you know, like we talked about. So you're thinking you can only charge the amount that people in your small town will probably pay for when you're helping these people who are getting these amazing results. Doesn't matter where they're from. So, in my podcast, I just released the other day, I was talking about when I started doing brand design, um, I did a logo for $25. And I mean, I'm just cringing right now because I did projects like that and I was nervous to charge that because that's all I knew and that's what people would pay me. Um, and so that was my mindset when I first started. And it grew to, after working on my mindset and actually understanding what I'm doing was valuable. I was charging before I made my pivot to coaching was just like $1,500 just for a phone call about somebody's strategy for their brand. And I love to show that example because it's really how you think about yourself and really treating the value that you give as something important and not, downplaying it and undercharging.
Yeah, I can see how I see it a lot too. And I, for some reason, I attract a lot of coaches, so I do a lot of interviews with coaches. But I think that sometimes I have to remind myself I'm not like you're not selling you, right? You're
Mhm.
selling how important the result is to them.
Right.
And if it's easy to you, like if something you do is easy, you don't value it as much because it's easy, right? I
Mhm.
would never
Yeah.
outsource my skill to someone else because I'm like, why I do that? I don't even have to think about it. But to that person, they're like, oh my gosh, that's the worst thing in the world. I never ever want to have to do that, right? So it's
Yeah.
worth a lot to them. And so I think sometimes we, especially if you do one-on-one work, you're like, well, they're buying me time with me. Well, no,
Mhm.
like, no. They're buying like
Yeah.
the result they're getting
Yeah, that's a
from,
hard thought to shift too, right?
yeah. I'm still working on it some days, which is funny. So I came from like 20 years of healthcare IT data integration, product management,
Okay.
and traveled for work, all these things. And so I, for personal reasons, shifted into a different kind of role, like you're doing now as well. And um, I remember just thinking, I closed once a $6.8 million sales project, right? It was super cool. Seems like a big deal. And I'm worried about asking someone for $1,500. And I was like, what is wrong with you? You're
Right.
like, hey, you got 6 million? They're like, sure. And they're like, oh, you got like 25 bucks. It's just like what's going on? And I think for me, it was, they weren't buying me then either, right? They were buying the system that we could give them a result that they needed.
Mhm.
But I think it's small town is probably like amped up in that area where
Mhm.
no one you ever knew probably sold more than like the car guy, right? The car guy probably sells some cars, but otherwise everyone else is not living with that kind of budget. It's
Right.
kind of a weird thing. So how did you make that transition then from like how did you realize that the result had a bigger worth or a bigger amount? Like what was that awakening or how did you learn that?
I think it was through the main thing was doing internal work. Just I do a lot of journaling and like a lot of what I do now is like actual visualization of what do I want my life to look like in a year or 6 months. But in that like specific situation, I think the biggest thing is to think about, okay, so I have this client. What does this mean to them? How is it going to change their life, their business? And branding is a big deal, especially when you're very visible and your name is on things. So to also compare this to maybe like a barber shop that's in a small town, it might not be as important. They might not value it as much as somebody who's got their logo on all of this different merchandise. So you really have to look at it from the client's perspective of how much do they value this, and then you have to market to that type of person, because if you're marketing to the person who doesn't really value it, they're not going to pay those prices.
Yeah, I can see how that goes. So I know one of the things that I get stuck in, and maybe maybe it is small town-esque, but well, I live in the Midwest. I live in Milwaukee. Nobody buys coaching in the Midwest. Everyone does that on the coast, right? And I remember saying that to myself for quite a bit when I first started. Well, it wasn't serving me, first of all, to keep saying nobody does this and this. And the other was it wasn't true. It was just the people that I knew weren't.
Right.
Right. And the people that needed the service weren't the people I was talking to. Um, and that was hard too, because then you get into, which you talk about a little bit, I think, but then you get into, okay, if I accept that or even embody that people do buy these products and these services and they are worth this, but I just don't know those people. So how do I get clients then? Right? Isn't that the big
Yeah.
question?
Yeah. And I think I think you really have to get clear on what is the message that you want to be putting out there first, and who is it that you want to help, and is that person going to value the service, the product, whatever you've got. um I know I've had, oh, this has been happening to me all the time lately. I've been getting an idea, I need to write it down because I lose it like that. uh and then
Just
it'll come back to
I
me
do
in
that
5 minutes.
that's called mom brain. I'm gonna go with
Ah.
I have 4 kids. I have what are the ages? Yeah, see? No. 8, 10, or 6, 8, 10, and 14. And I think it dissipates as they get a little older. And then now I'm starting to get older, so I'm gonna blame it on that. But uh, this is my brain. All things that you've said I've written down because I don't want to forget what I was gonna say afterward. But what we were talking about was when you're trying to get clients and like you're like, okay, look, I know I don't know anyone in this market right now, and I want to be able to give them this value. You said, well, first you have to know what you want to say to them, what's the message, and then you want to figure out who it is that you want to help and make sure that they can afford the thing that you're trying to sell, right? So that's kind of where you were going with that. I think that's where people talk about niching, right? Where they're like, you gotta talk to one person, but they also have to be able to pay for the thing that you want.
Yeah, and I think people are either like super for niching, or they're like, you don't need it. They think you don't need it at all.
Yeah, they're really varied, right? They're like,
Yeah,
you
it's
don't
either
do that
one or
no
the
more by
other, it seems
yourself.
like.
Yeah, or oh, that's stupid.
Yeah. And I mean, personally, I found that it's easier to find clients when you do have a niche. That's just my perspective, and that's what I, advise when people do ask me that question. Just in my personal opinion, I think it's a lot easier to hone in on your marketing when you do know who you're talking to, and you're not just like talking to everybody as a whole.
Yeah, I actually had an interesting example where I was like, oh yeah, I see how that might be true. Um, I one of the people I would always say I help is like, oh, I help career driven moms. Can you Google that or look up that job description on LinkedIn very easily? No, right? So then I was like, well, I've spent all these years in product, right? Product, program. You can look up product manager. You can look up program manager. You can look up, so if you can Google the people you're trying to help in a specific way, then you probably are niching in a decent way. But if, you search your topic and you don't find anything, well, they're not going to find you either, right? Because that's how they're looking for you. So
Right.
it's like if I can reject the word niche all I want, but I can't reject how well search results work or don't. So so
Yeah.
that was my perspective shift.
Yeah. And I like when I was doing brand work, With my clients, we would work on, and I kind of try and bring some of this into my coaching as well, because it really all kind of rolls together. But we would identify 2 personas that you want to be marketing to. And we would get so deep into who this person was. We would name them. I know some people think that's funny, but that's the process that I took people through. And it really helped them visualize this person and how, if they were standing in front of them and having a conversation, it makes it a lot easier trying to decide what you're going to say and like what's going to appeal to them.
Absolutely. I think that's, yeah, I can't disagree with you. So yay. Well, so this was a lot. We went through a lot of information really fast. Um, so thank you very much for taking your time. I love that that you shared with us some of the bigger challenges that the small town person might have, and were really helpful in helping us sort of niche down on our clients. What if somebody wants to work with a small town coach like yourself? What could they do to get a hold of you, or how can they find you?
Yeah, so the place I really like to hang out is my Facebook group, and it's just called the Small Town Entrepreneur. So you can find me in there. You can find me I'm on Facebook all the time. And also my website is just samgreenwaldt.com. And I've got, if you do want to find out more about what it would look like to work together, I've got a link on there that has my call scheduler. And I offer a free, I think it's like a 35-minute call, just to get to know each other and see what it would look like to work together. So.
Awesome. Well, we'll make sure that we put all that information in the show notes. That's super
Okay.
easy for people to be able to get a hold of you. Well, any parting words for our audience before we go?
I think the one thing I really just want to say is that the life you want for yourself is totally possible. Like every single opportunity is already out there just waiting. And I love having that thought, even like personally, just everything is ready for you to just grab a hold, and you just have to be open to it. So I always like to remind people of that, because some people I think feel like that's not available to them, and it totally is.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you taking time. I know you have limited time with little kiddos and a full-time job and trying to change the minds of all those small town folks. So I appreciate it, and keep in touch. We'd love to see when you make the whole switch and you go full-time Sam.
Absolutely. I hope it's very, very soon.
Well, good luck with that. We'll visualize some good stuff for you, okay?
Okay, thanks a lot for having me, Jackie.
Yeah, bye-bye.